I'm intrigued in asking to introduce you and all this. Hey, I'll give you a nice introduction and we'll go from there. Hi everyone, I'm Marky Billson, Tri-City Sports Now. If you read the ETSU basketball notes that they give to the media before every game, I saw where Steve Forbes had, I believe, the 13th highest winning percentage in all of major college basketball among head coaches. Well, this guy may have him beat now. He's undefeated, 1-0. Jason Shay, who filled in yesterday after a coaching suspension. Steve Forbes kicked out of the loss to Wofford. So it's time, hey, you're kind of the man of the hour here after your victory against Reinhardt, admittedly an NAIA opponent, but still the Bucks won impressively, 107-60. I guess my first question, I gave you the 1-0 record, but I'm trying to think, had you been a head coach in the college level, JUCO or anything like that before this game? Had you ever called the shots before?
I have not, so this was the first.
Well, Jason Shay, let me ask this of you too. How does that work? I understand that your boss, Steve Forbes, couldn't even be in the building as the condition of his suspension. But when you are the interim coach, do you meet with him and say, okay, we want to go over strategies here? Or is it basically, hey, you're in control for the day, go get them? How is the preparation different in a game like this?
It wasn't that much different. Steve was at walkthrough earlier in the day, and I'm heavily involved in a lot of our preparation as we lead up to games. So really the day didn't really change. The preparation didn't change as we prepared for last night's game. And, the only thing was I got to stand up and call some timeouts.
And I would assume, what defense to play in the early going when Reinhardt couldn't hit a shot from the outside. I think they've missed their first 11 three-pointers and started out 1 for 9 from the field. So was that you were able, I guess, to call the defense and the strategies as the game came out and who to play. There wasn't a set formula of when it gets to here, I want you to take this guy out or anything of that nature. Or was there?
No, I usually, because I coach the post players in practice, and I usually do the subbing for the post players during the game.
Oh.
So just based on feel and how the guys out there look, if they look tired or foul trouble, then we're going to sub, and then Coach Savage and Coach Mackey, they handle the guard substitutions, so that didn't really change. Defensively, we got off to a decent start. We tried to make things difficult because I thought that we were a little bit bigger and a little bit faster. So we wanted to challenge every pass and make every shot as difficult as possible, and we were able to do that early.
Talking to Jason Shay, he filled in for the suspended Steve Forbes in ETSU's 47-point victory against Reinhardt. Now, you mentioned you coach the post players and what your role is, and thanks for telling us that, because and the inside knowledge there. But I got to ask you then, against Reinhardt, yeah, it's an overmatched opponent, but one of the great rebounding efforts in ETSU history with 60-odd rebounds. However, Wofford was able to really win the battle of the boards against Armas and Rodriguez after a season in which ETSU had pretty much won those battles up to that game. What did Wofford do differently that any of the other teams that you had played had not?
They're well coached, and when you play against higher caliber teams, they're gonna, and because of our success early, there's gonna be a concerted effort to keep us off the glass. And then on the other end, they've got some offensive rebounds, just because we are trying to do a good job of challenging their threes, and sometimes it wasn't always our guard challenging those threes. And we had a post player that would step out there to to make sure that their look from three was difficult. Well, then that allowed Aluma to have a free run to the glass when we needed a guard then to come down and help rebound. And so, it's an emphasis, it's a learning experience, but it's an area that we've got to continue to work on. Usually our first shot defense, what we call them when they take their first initial shot in the half court, is pretty good, but we've got to do a better job of securing that rebound and not giving them, the other opponent, second chance opportunities.
We're talking to Jason Shay, the one-day head coach of ETSU, normally Steve Forbes' right-hand man. I want to now ask you, I looked at your background, and I know you go back with Steve Forbes for several years, but before that, you were at a variety of stops. You're an Iowa grad, so I can understand why Steve Forbes likes you, but I saw that about 20 years ago, you were an SID at Mercyhurst up in Erie, PA, the Lakers and such. How does one go from being an SID to a coach?
Well, that was my second responsibility. I was an assistant coach up there, but that was my first job, and I took the job and I made $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just recently married at the time. I come just $5,000, so they gave me a position as the assistant SID. So I helped put together some media guides for some of the other sports, and basically that was primarily it because my main responsibility was as an assistant basketball coach. So it was a great experience and a great first job for me.
Do you think that that's given you more of an appreciation of the media, though?
Oh, yeah, because, you got to do your research, and then you got to ask tough questions, and then you've also, you got to have a story, and you try and paint a picture of the general public. And so, I've always had a high appreciation for the media.
Jason Shay, I do hope after the interview is through you can stay on it. I just want to ask if you by any chance knew some people that my audience will have absolutely no idea who they are, but they're people that I knew from Mercyhurst and all that. But so if you could stay on after the interview, but I do want to ask you about those experiences. You've been at Mercyhurst and you've been at North Dakota before coming to ETSU. What is it with you coaching basketball at hockey schools?
That's a great question, because I didn't know growing up, as a lower level division, Mercyhurst was Division II.
Yeah.
You could have one sport that was Division I, and when I was at Mercyhurst, men's and women's hockey was Division I, and they actually made the playoffs and played Michigan in the playoffs for the hockey. So that was a unique experience. And then when I went to North Dakota, that's the blue blood program in hockey up there, and the hockey arena would rival any NHL hockey arena. And the North Dakotans, they were very passionate about their hockey up there. And in the wintertime, every public school has an outdoor arena, and so those kids kind of just grow up with that culture and being around hockey.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the arena at North Dakota. Forgive me for the NHL and all that. I'm a little more familiar with Erie and Mercyhurst, and for that matter, being in Erie. And from November to March, there's going to be snow on the roads. I mean, the interstate. That's just one of the things that I learned about that. The Lakers, of course, but you've gone on from there. And I did want to ask you, the one guy, I guess, to ask about those days. Forgive me, you're talking to a former Western Pennsylvania, but I know the longtime hockey coach there is Rick Gotkin, who would have been there while you were at the SID, and the basketball coach putting together media relations. Did you ever have any conversation with him? Because I know he's a real disciplinarian. I've gotten that from several of his players. Did your paths actually cross with Gotkin? Did you learn any lessons of discipline?
Just a little bit, not much that I would say that we have a relationship, but I do know Coach, and disciplined, and for a small school like Mercyhurst, to make it to the NCAA tournament, that's a big thing. So you got to be doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, I stories of, I'm cutting this player because he was late too much or something of that nature. I would hear that from Rick Gotkin. I just was curious if that was anything, a lesson about discipline or anything, if maybe you picked up something from him.
No,
okay.
I didn't have very much interaction.
Yeah.
Because their sport is going at the same time
sure.
as ours, and so
sure.
It was hard, to have any type of relationship with them.
Oh, I understand that. Anyway, but all right, we're talking to Jason Shay. He filled in as the head coach at ETSU in their 47-point victory against Reinhardt. But he's also known Bruce Pearl for quite some time. I guess going on about a decade since you both were assistants at Tennessee. Do you remember the first time you met Steve Forbes?
Yeah, I was actually working for Coach Pearl at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and Steve was up in the Milwaukee area recruiting, and he came by campus, and we were actually running summer camp, and so that was really my first interaction with Steve, and then when we got the job at Tennessee, Coach Pearl tried to hire him when we first got there, but he had just gotten to A&M and felt an obligation to
sure
stay there, and then the second year he made the change.
But Wisconsin, Milwaukee, I'm almost tempted to ask you if Richie, Potsy, and Ralph were big boosters, but I'll hold off on that right there. But did you know when you were coaching there? Of course, you had something kind of big going. I mean, at one point, I think it was February 25th. I want to say 2009. Tennessee was number one team in the country. I'm trying to remember exactly what year it was, but maybe you can help me out with that. But they're briefly number one team in the country. Did you know that Forbes was going to be a head coach when you were coaching alongside him?
Yeah, but I think all of our assistants, we wanted to be head coaches at some point. And obviously, Steve, prior to that, had been a head coach in the JUCO ranks. So it was just a matter of time. We had great success when we were at Tennessee, and so it was, it was just biding your time and getting an opportunity and finding the right fit.
I know that this may sound simplistic to ask, but do you want to be a head men's basketball coach?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to, run my own program, and I've had a lot of good mentors, and I think I'm ready for that opportunity.
I know that there was some scuttlebutt that maybe you might be a candidate at Western Carolina this past season. Did you ever hear from them?
I did not.
Okay.
Did not.
All right. No, I mean, that was. I actually asked Steve Forbes about that too, and he said, "Oh, he'd be a great candidate and such." Now, is there a level that you wouldn't go to? I mean, if an NAIA school said, "Hey, we'll make you head coach and all that," would that be considered, I think, a little too low for you if things are about the same as they are right now?
I think you always have to look at every opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
These head coaching positions are hard to get.
Yes.
And you have to take a look at them. But yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into it. Timing. Where I'm at with. I've got two kids that are growing up and coming through the Johnson City school system. So there's a lot of factors that come into. But I don't think you can ever not just turn down a job just because of the level.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that from coaches sometimes. They say, look, I mean, just what you say, there are so many coaching jobs, and if somebody offers you one and you need it or you want it, you better listen, no matter what the level is. Well, Jason Shay, I want to thank you for joining me here, and I guess it's back to, being the right-hand man for Steve Forbes when ETSU, plays Martin Tennessee Martin this Saturday. But like I said, I've been kind of intrigued with you and your background, being a former SID. And that's unique. I know that maybe that was a part-time gig to get you a little extra money or so, but as I said, we kind of like that. You kind of understand then a little bit more about the media and such. And by the way,
I would call it was probably a stretch to call me an SID, but I did do it because I needed a little extra money.
Well, I have gone out and tried to find, just based on internet research, bios of ball players, and that can be really tough to do, especially when they're from another country and speak another language. And I've had to do that for media guides, so that's I know what you go through right there. Sometimes it's not just what the coach gives you from high school. You got to do your own research. But anyway, Jason Shay, a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Good luck to you the rest of the year, and of course next week we'll have back on Steve Forbes. So he's the man of the hour with a 1,000 winning percentage. Well, maybe I'll tell you how that'll be determined when we come back. Tri-City Sports Now.
Thanks.
Sure. Yes. Well, I just was curious. Did you know Joe Giordano, by any chance? Was he still